Welcome on behalf of Poem Present. Very happy to have Nate Mackey here today. Nate is not a stranger to the University of Chicago. He's been here a number of times. We tried even to persuade him to stay, but unsuccessfully. Nate is instead a professor at University of California, Santa Cruz. He's the author of a half dozen or so books. He has a new book coming out in 2006 called Splay Anthem. This will be published by New Directions. He has, you may know the volume What Said Seraph, 1998, School of Udra, 1993, and Eroding Witness, 1985. He's also produced a very interesting CD called Strick, Song of the Andumbulu, 16 to 25, which is a reading with musical accompaniment from Royal Hardigan on percussion and Hafez Modirzadeh on reeds and flutes. And that's a terrific CD. He is also the author of a wonderful prose series. 3 books have been published, and it's ongoing. It's called From a Broken Bottle, Traces of Perfume Still Emanate. I'm going to actually quote the first of these, Bedouin Horn book. Nate also was recently elected to the Board of Chancellors of the Academy of American Poets, so he's fully institutionalized now. As everybody knows, Pope's phrase about poetry being what oft was thought but ne'er so well expressed. This notion has a lot of power. Some great poetry seems to be just this, formulation of general understanding in gorgeous, compelling form. It's not only old poets who meet this taste, I should say. I think Miłosz meets this taste. He's dead, but he's not long dead. But there are other kinds of poets, and Nate belongs to another kind of poetic push. A push in poetry whereby the poem is regarded as an instrument of exploration. As Rutke said, old men should be explorers. Creeley, one of Nate's favorite poets, asked, how can it be a poem if you already know it? So the notion of exploring, writing about what you don't know, could say what you don't yet know if it goes really well, but writing about what you don't know, and that means pursuing directions that don't all work out, at least not work out with a strict notion of economy involved, economy of arriving quickly at a general truth, the sort of economy that Miłosz's poetry answers to. This sort of poetry is committed to making errors, to wandering. Nate is a tracker. He tracks words through their resemblances. Sometimes those resemblances are etymological. That is, sometimes etymology confirms resemblances, what he calls the roots of coincidence in the Bedouin Horn book. But sometimes the resemblances are sonic resemblances, and Nate has enormous courage in following sound. It's a deep intellectual courage in Nate, and I've seen it. I've heard him talk about this for years and marveled at it. He says that the objective of this tracking procedure I'm talking about is an audacious truth. I'm paraphrasing his words a little bit in Bedouin Horn book. N writes to the Angel of Dust. He says, what I'm getting at might also go like this: caressive, haunted by corrosive imprint. Imprint haunted by implicated hand. Implicated haunted by complicated, haunted by complicitous, evaporative embrace haunted by vertiginous imbalance. That kind of tracking is what I'm talking about, and what reading his poems, the ways in which his poems open up paths. He says, I confess to a weakness of these amphibious, in-between, both and advances into a realm which defies categorization. This way of trespassing, so to speak, the line which otherwise divides melody from rhythm, horn from drum, and so forth. The pleasure of this poetry is the finding of a path, the making of a path. And the paths are known by sound, I think mostly by sound, by compelling language in any case. And it's a special kind of beauty, and it's an invigorating part of the art of poetry. Please join me in welcoming Nate Mackey.
Thank you, Bob, for that very kind introduction. And it is actually quite a pleasure to be here again. I'm going to read, to begin with, from Splay Anthem, the book that Bob mentioned that's coming out in May. And it's a book in which the two serial poems that I've been writing for years come together and interweave and intertwine. Those two are Song of the Andumbulu and a poem called Mew. The first named after a funeral song among the Dogon of Mali, West Africa, and the second named after a piece of music by trumpeter Don Cherry, one of the voices in the new music out of the 60s, played with Ornette Coleman to really come to the attention of people at that time. I'm going to begin with a poem in the Mew series. It's the 33rd part. It's called Sigh of the Moor. Sigh of the Moor, or Suspiro del Moro, is the name of a flamenco group in Spain. And it's also the name of a place in Granada. And they're naming themselves after that pass in Granada. But it's apparently outside Granada, it's apparently the last pass from which Granada is visible as you go to the sea heading south. And it's called Sigh of the Moor because the last of the Moorish kings, King Abu Abdillah, or Boabdil, as the Spanish know him, heaved a sigh of despair on leaving Spain at this spot as he gazed back on Granada for the last time. Sat watery-limbed at the rhythm table, Nomo-like legs and arms, jointless, juked oud everywhere, ambient, juked oud piped in on all sides. They were adrift in late ghosthood, proto-ghost remit, readied their way with string stir, tremor, plucked insistency, strung. Strewn aegis, abject auspices, Annuncia no longer lost. Her spread legs announcing children, house behind a fence, mortgage due, 3rd of the month. It wasn't astral anymore. It wasn't cosmic. Night sky starless under smog, if not bomb light. Bomb sought skyward, sunk. It wasn't Gilead where they were. It wasn't Gethsemane. Flat realm, no rise, no resonance. Booklessness, the book they thumbed. No biblic aura, no alternate life. At last they were only where they were. Far from lone coast, dreamless, even dreaming. Dreams no longer steeped in salt. This the air grew thick with. Ooge drop leavened it all nonetheless. Tapped at the seance table. Knuckles, had they had them, numb. Why oud music arrived in the room, neither he nor she knew. Why Granada, glimpsed in retreat, flashed before their eyes, neither one of them knew. Boabdil tapped at the table, tapped as on the wood of a guitar. Palm to palm, clapped, keeping time, let go of time. This they nowhere near began to know. They sat up late, holding hands at the kitchen table. Lights out, candles lit. Susurrus air notwithstanding, they were only where they were, endlessly inflected sough notwithstanding, sigh upon sigh upon sigh. Sat ever so unknowing, unaware they played host. Only the song knew, the song said, sang of itself, and exclaimed, ah, choked on, swollen, welling sigh, sang of their unwitting relay. Southern Spain, Southern California, by oud light, lately the same. But they were only where they were, heaved and exhaled, other than they were, though they were. Sought their shadows in heaven, nowhere near come true, only having to do with him thinking them stuck there, not to be believed outright. Thought them stuck but for the oud's invitation, getting old in the same place, already old in the same place, strings plucked with an eagle feather pick. Sought shadow, seen or sensed in heaven, Boabdil's resuscitated sigh. They sat up late, dreaming they lay on their backs, looking up at the stars, roof borne away by candle smoke, roofed amenities, eventual demise. Beneath a window overlooking lone coast, the sound of waves pounding salt on the eardrum, a dream of exegetic sleep. Unbooked but for the water's ripped edge, frayed page the rotating earth turned, tore, one would someday see. So spoke the oracle, the exegete, dream of a ceased reed read endlessly, reed annulling omens end. Smell of salt on the wind off the water, sounds from the amusement park. A stone's throw from lone coast, no matter how far from lone coast, the otherwise bookless too. Not that a ghost was there, more that where they were was a ghost of itself, Boabdil's abdicated kingdom equated with latency's alternate run. So wrote the exegete, spoke without speaking, a stick's tip on sand, what writ there was. It wasn't that all things pass, love not least among them. Wasn't that it was theirs once, wasn't it no longer was. A Zambra was on the box, love's unanswered moan, Moorish tiles evoking rendezvous, romance, walkway to Nunca's door. It was not never having been there, never it having gone. Annuncius once, what now was Nunca's, not having known before. This is a song of the Andumbulu. Both of these series have been going on since the 1970s and appear in Eroding Witness, which is the first book of mine published. So they're getting up there. Song of the Andumbulu 55, which is subtitled Orphic Fragment. The first part plays a bit off of the movie Black Orpheus. Carnival morning, they were Greeks in Brazil, Africans in Greek disguise. Said of herself, she was born in a house in heaven. He said he was born in the house next door. They were in hell. In Brazil, they were love bait. To abide by hearing was what love was. To love was to hear without looking. Sound was the beloved's mummy cloth. All to say, said the exegete, love in hell was a voice, to be spoken to from behind, not to be able to turn and look. It wasn't Greece where they were, nor was it Benin. Carnival morning in made-up hell, bodies bathed in loquat light, would-be songs all the more would-be title, sound and cerement, voice wound in bandages, raveling lamps. Up all night, slept well past noon, awoke restless, having dreamt she awoke on lone coast, wondering afterwards what it came to, glimpsed interstice, crevice, crack. Saw her dead mother and brother pull up in a car, her brother at the wheel, not having driven while alive, newly taught by death, it appeared. A fancy car, bigger than any her mother had had while alive. She too better off, it appeared. A wishful read, it appeared, notwithstanding, the exegete impossibly benign. Dreamt a dream of dreams' end, anxious, unannounced, Arenel's nevermore namesake, Monk's anagrammatic Lenore. That the dead return in luxury cars made us weep, pathetic its tin elegance, pitiable, sweet read, misread, would be sweet. This is toward the end of the book, Song of the Andumbulu 58. The Dogon, in Dogon cosmology, there's a lot of concern with twinning, things being entwined, and twos. And that's something that runs through these poems. And there's a kind of archetypal couple who pop up in these poems again and again. The intractable two no longer among us, he her ecstatic exegete, wishing the world away, nose between her legs as in a book. Comes up for air, she straddles his lap. A stiff bouquet opens their noses. Not that it would ever not be there, not that even so it would be the same. Animal grace fallen down or away from, all for naught if not amended, made of its own remit. A lit screen showed it was us rubbed away. Dread Lake's namesake brew, drank our fill, poppin' fell from the sky. Oddly fed, feasted on grief. Debris bumped our heads, rubble hurt our feet. Fingerless, if not without hands, drew back from reaching. Nub, the new kingdom, come. Remnant light lay weakening light's retreat. Children said to be of the night, no longer children, such what we'd have otherwise been. Somewhere someone chanted, an echo we looped and re-looped. Dub it was as much as it was nub we were in. Ersatz eternity looped ad infinitum, loop given reverb to. Echoes flew close to the earth, bleak reconnaissance. Tape ran away in reverse, took us with it, beginning to be alive, it seemed. We whose two demanded a longer count, long since riven. I was only what was left. She his unimpressed interpreter, I thought, bone as well as body looked at, leafed, eyes lit like ember, book of no turning back. Back seemed all there was, alive begun to appear to be ember, interregnum, death roll exception, proof. Terrain like no other, nubscape, flags filled up the sky. Two loomed incalculable, aggregate regress, nub's raw republic, absconded with, we thought. Nub short for Nubia, we thought we thought, there no more the where we'd have been. Such that one, being what was left, blew up, and I before that a blind lemon, blue lemon, teardrop adjournment, salt. so that everything it took wing, newly adduced or indifferent, no one to say which, well-paved outskirts of nudge notwithstanding, Nub's new landing point. Armless, one lay in wait, moot warrior, crouched behind a bush put upon by wind, misgiving, doubt. There that we'd have otherwise been, blue summit, state stand only as we'd allow. Lovers' dub covered lovers' republic. Something obscene, it seemed, was on the box. Crawled on our stomachs, elbows to dirt. The inchworm was on the box. The box filled with water, dry rot, worm roots, voices ran through. Wrung water from a sawed-off branch, coaxed omen, hollowed out tree trunk, thumped. So much easier said, so much of what we said. Rhythm log wasted by antwing, wormjaw, Balafon bridge undone. Scrounged around among bushes and tree roots, went to rise, but our heads held us down. We were Ondumbulu, bloated heads atop shrunken bodies. The song said to be ours are repeating heads vamped till ready, torn heads mended, spin. Shrunken bodies, bloated heads, we were Ondumbulu. Bodies more head than husk were song body, torn heads, compromise. Rummaged around on all fours to bug accompaniment. What we wanted, we couldn't have. Multiple the names it went by, legion, wars over which one fit broke out, nation of none though we were. Not yet nation of nub that we were, said to have been born with barbs in our skin, anesthetic nation of nuh. Said to have been born in beds made of glass. Bed be our Balafon bridge, we exhorted. Bed be our rhythm log. Glass meant broken, slivers where we lay. Isthmic digestion held even so. Shards bone deep, it meant. Bridge meant see-through, sailless, something we'd assume so elliptical it seemed. Unsay said it best. Unsay said what there was of it to say. Nub's low skyline lay to our left. Nub lay close to the earth. Nub cut us off. We were never all there. Raw knuckles pounding the earth bled rivers. Blood run carried us away. Scrounged around on what earth was left. The intransigent few Nub stubbed its toe on. All of earth was what earth was left, so few we were, back at some beginning, it seemed. It was morning, gray morning. Pearl divers chanting in the gulf beside the bed, clock dial phosphorescent, lit. The lovers lay again without recoil. World without war, without end, intimated, dream they'd awaken from. In a ship's hold, helpless, hair the look of thicket, ship of state they'd call it, crushed. But for now, before that, sleep of ages, again as if starting from scratch. Asleep yet on the tips of their tongues kept asking, salt not known to call itself salty, what to say. What of us wouldn't carry caught on the bank of the river? Lit spear brandished on the bank of the river, lit spear hoisted, flung. Locked and braided eldrin sang without sound, sang without voice with what blood lay claim to. Blood was a paper-thin slick atop water. Water ran where voices would have been. Blood spoke in tongues from the far side of tongues. Bed be none of the above, blood admonished. Unsay's day, if not begun, soon come. So increasingly, these series have become poems of transit, movement. This band of nervous travelers who move on. This is a song of the Ondumbulu 60. The vote came in early. We ignored it. No ballot box auction for us. Nubs uninstructed dances, bare feet, music we took them for. At a loss with only bodies to fend with, nonsonant waves kept coming, sang without wind, saltless, waterless, nubs inverted run, nub newly vented by horns blown elsewhere, bells full of insect husks. Nonsonant scruff held onto, sheerness, nothingness it seemed we grabbed at, gathered, beginning to be unending it seemed. We were beginning to be lured again, ready to be hectored, huthered, move on, beginning to be uprooted again. A peppered expanse the country we crossed, space doled out so stingily we wept. Love's numb extremity, the outskirts of name whose elision we embraced. A tale told many times over, known before it reached us, known before we knew, unbacked alley of soul we wandered into, shadow box romance it was called. Come of late to creation's outskirts, Rub's new muse a republic of none, a yet-to-be band, the band we were. We were Ondumbulu, dreamt inhabitants of Mu, moored but immersed, real but made up, so much farther flung than we'd have thought. They, the would-be we, lay on a bed the size of Outlandish, lip attesting lip, tongue rummaging tongue, took between finger and thumb the hem of her dress, flat bead of sweat, salted cloth. A hammer hit them each on the head. Hammered heads rang and rang without end. Called it creation, called it their climb, close where there was otherwise distance, mute endearment, recondite embrace. So much farther, felt even so, mouth she remembered, home. His to hear her tell it, hers were it his to say, whose book was of lengthening limbs, hers of the unquenchable kiss. A tale told over and over, long since known by heart, lay belly to back, turned belly to belly, each the other's dreamt accompanist, music they made in their sleep. Frayed him the interstice, time's moot rule amended, echoed advance, it was also called. A first unfallen church of what might have been. Let run its course, it would have gone otherwise. Time's ulterior bequest. This they had a way of imagining. This they so wished it to be. Abstract he at the back of her mind, she at the back of his, each the other's nub constituent, ghost of an alternative life. They were we before we were, ancestral, we who'd never not be ill at ease. A vocation for lack, he'd have said, she'd have said longing, a world were they to speak between. What wasn't, they'd have said, went away, would come back. First fanatic church, what would be? They the would-be we talking talk of election, devotees of Yamanja. Glass green water they were in up to their shoulders, each the other's moored recess. The way she said his name stayed with him. More made of what wasn't there than what was, whispered, came back again. Love called out from sidewalk to balcony, rooftop to galaxy, mute. More made of what was there than was there, mouths vow heavy at bed's edge, lip touch never to be done. Never to get up again it seemed, lay shaken, endlessly commemorative advent, dreamt evanescent caress. A first unfallen church it might have been. Let run its course it would have gone otherwise, time's ulterior bequest. This they had a way of imagining, this they so wished it to be. Abstract he at the back of her mind, she at the back of his, each the other's nub constituent, ghost of an alternative life. They were we before we were, ancestral. We who'd never not be ill at ease. A vocation for lack, he'd have said. She'd have said longing, a world were they to speak between. What wasn't, we'd have said, went away, would come back. First afflicted church, what would be? We were caught in a dream, whispering names we'd forget, waking up, caught waking up, or in a dream of waking up, mute sound riffling our lips. Nub was a name. Was a name. Was a name. All moving on. Names came after us, roused us in our sleep. The ballot box opening grinned and grinned again. Gone we'd have been could we have run. It wasn't we were stuck, stood frozen, transfixed. Paralytic dream, number 12. It was waking known otherwise, put running out of reach. Nonsonance's waterless waves held us up, more than we could sense, but sensed even so. Nonsonance's gap-tooth slur. Day late, so all the old attunements gave way. Late, but soon come, even so. A political trek, we'd have said it was, albeit politics kept us at bay. Nothing wasn't politics, we'd say. Wanting our want to be called otherwise, kept at bay though we were. Day late, but all the old stories echoed yet again. Old, but even so, soon come. A mystic march, they'd have said it was, acknowledging politics kept us at bay. Everything was mystical, they'd say. Wanting our want to be so named, kept at bay as we were. What the matter wasn't a question, no question what it was. Nub no longer stood but lay, and we lay with it, earth's sway cradling our backs. What the matter was rocked us, a way we had with dirt, awaiting what already might have been there. Dust, abducted future, Dearth Lake's dry largesse, Dread Lake's aliases, alibis, Death Lake also there. Where we were rubbed earth in our faces, a feeling we had for debris. Nub, no longer standing, filled the air, an exact powder, fell as we ran through it, earth's way swaddling our feet. And that's how Splay Anthem ends. I'm going to read a few poems from a book I'm working on, which I don't have a title for other than Post-Splay. This is a poem called Double Staccato, and it's named after a piece of sculpture by Thaddeus Mosley, a sculptor from Pittsburgh, whose work Ed Roberson, who's sitting over there and with whom I'll be reading on Saturday, introduced me to. Thad works in wood and stone, but mainly wood, or at least that's the medium that I was kind of focused on in this poem. And Double Staccato is a piece of his dedicated to a couple of trumpeters, Fats Navarro, and I can't remember the other one. Do you remember, Ed? No, okay. Fats Navarro, and it'll come to me tomorrow. A tipsy walk, the walk we, excuse me, a tipsy walk, the walk we took. Tilt had its way, teeter. So to say, we said. Wood's what said serenade, emulated. Mew, 44th part. A closer walk through the forest of semblances nicked our skin. Wood's near side leaned in, leaned out. Gouge's gospel it was we brushed against. Wood's new kingdom come. At blade's edge, ground gave way. Planetary mend, admonishment. Legs abruptly rubber, it seemed. Synesthetic snout, synesthetic eye slit, head broken off, come to a point, pointing up and back, grain plied say on say. Grain said say, laid elsewhere, lay within squint's reach. A wobbly walk through the forest of semblances it was. Sledge-headed lean looked out at us. Book of blade, alphabet of scuff it turned out. Scrape, scour, scuff. Water slid ashore, not far away. Would eventually water. Walk so long sung about, closer than we thought. Wood said to be source, as if to say it was once water. Wood already water. Grain it's giving way. Sand laid grain on grain. We saw each one, said or thought we saw. Wave and oblique writing on wood. Ripple, wave our diluvian book. So to say, we said, so to say. What I heard was in my head, I said. No one was listening. Woods walked, talked, even so. What would Wood say, we asked, and we answered. So to say, we said, so to say. Dark woods siphoning light, we leaned in. Dark woods long way home. This is back to Song of the Andumbulu. This is number 68. It harks back to School of Udra, second book of poems, the Bedouin poets, the Udraite poets, at least to begin with, who when loving die. Udraite curvature, hand roving haunch, her hand leavening his. World a reduction, world we departed, world we blew up in. Again we were in southern Spain. We were in London, maybe Madrid. Another train pulled out, exploded. Another bus, cab, jet, imminent debris. We were somewhere else, anywhere but there. Song piped in from nowhere we knew the likes of. Music's we, the we'd be. We were somewhere else, wanting to be somewhere. Whatever crease or declivity hid revealed it seemed. Music's you and I, the we'd be. All of a sudden, subatomic it seemed. See-through flutes accosted us. We were less than bones underneath. The one song the songs all wanted in on, all inwardness, inside out. The one song the songs added or not added up to. Song any one song was. To Andumbulu we were yet to meet, yet we were them. Again we were in southern Spain. Song was a well, rope tossed into it, water we again coughed up. Did we fall asleep, not knowing we slept, we lay awake wondering. Sandpaper blanket, the bedding we got. Bed, some new regret. Wide awake, wondering what would console us. Free not to know where we were. Non-allegorical ground it was we stood on. Likewise, the house we blew up in. Remembered, yet to come it might have been. We the posthumous kin, still wondering which. Allegorical we laid us out, leg to leg, we lay awake. Night we lay remembering, twice removed. All being into ourselves exploded. Non-allegorical house notwithstanding, else what anything was, no matter what. Again, we were in southern Spain, sipping wine, eating tapas in Cordoba, a buleria, ghost road, our return. Soft cloth atop Udraite breast, belly, rump. Night of not knowing, not yet let go. The lovers awoke to news of an explosion, rolled over, dozed off again. Feathers floated up from their tongues as they spoke. Room and world meant the same. What it was outside leaned in. World as it was, as if never to be otherwise. In took outside in. Body bomb, soul fuse it appeared. long nights, loss of soul. Leg to leg they lay, each the other's increment, the we they'd eventually be. What they thought more real than what was there. They struck poses, looked off to the side, song backed by strings in the background. The word feliz kept coming up. Day yet to arrive, the one song, sung loud, what sought? Sunlight, long since gone. What they thought we saw thought, no secret. Fold and recess gave up all intimation, overt, post-Udrite, raw. Nothing stood still, they were in Cape Verde. The word feliz kept coming up. Strings took them up to a hillside they were children on. They were on Eleuthera, the mountaintops of Atlantis. Rag aria, imminent apocalypse, everything torn, blown up. In a dreamt opera, the air ignited. Stiffening ripples got to them again. They dreamt they fell asleep during intermission, lay on the floor in a back row, felt each other up, awoke with their clothes almost off. Hated that being all they could do. Not what was, but what might have been. The awaited blow, the blink of an eye, away. While we're alive, we kept repeating, kissed our lips raw, pendency's late resort. While we're alive, we repeated, oath we cut short, feathers massaged our throats. Where we were, we'd been before. That we could see ourselves meant we were them. Outside, looked in, looked out of it. Ragged, bleary, no sleep. Posthumous glimpse, a leaf catching light and abrupt wonder. While we're alive, we reminded ourselves. Fell asleep dreaming we were awake, awaiting sleep. Tight-eyed wind on warm water moved in. Storm we'd be inundated by. Again we were in southern Spain. Heard singers coaxing something from words we'd left off hearing, exegetes against our will. Where we came to next recalled where we'd come from. New memory, we named it. We were them again. We were orbiting an alternate sun. Star wobble gave us away. Big, many-pointed burst it was, and we ran whatever it was, ran whether or not we knew what it was. I'll finish with Mu 48th part, which is called Day After Day of the Dead. While we're alive, we kept repeating. Tongues, throats, roofs of our mouths bone dry. Skeletons we'd someday be. Panicky masks we wore for effect, more than effect, more real than we'd admit. No longer wanting to know what soul was. Happy to see shadow, no touch. Happy to have sun at our backs, wayled by shadow. Happy to have bodies block light. Afternoon sun lighting leaf, glint of glass, no matter what. About to be out of body, it seemed. Soon to be shadowless, we thought, said we thought. Not to be off guard, caught out. Gray morning we meant to be done with. Requiem so sweet we forgot what it lamented. Teeth turning to sugar, we grinned. Day after day of the dead we were desperate. Dark what the night before we saw lit, bones we'd eventually be. At day's end a new tally, but there it was, barely begun. Rock the clock tower let go of, iridescent headstone, moments rebuff. Soul we saw, said we saw, invisible imprint. No one wanted to know what soul was. Day after day of the dead we were deaf, numb to what the night before we said moved us, fade lights coded locale. I fell away, we momentarily gone, deaf but to brass's obsequy, low brasses croon begun. I fell away, not fast, floated, momentary mention and accord with the wind, day after day of the dead, the same as day before day of the dead. No surprise, I fell away muttering. Knew no one would hear, not even me. We wore capes under which we were in sweaters out at the elbow. We wore capes under which we were in sweaters out at the elbow. Arms on the table, we chewed our spoons. Mouthing the blues, moaned an abstract truth, kept eating. The dead's morning after buffet, someone said it was. Feast of the unfed, said someone else. What were we doing there? The exegete kept asking. Adamant, uninvited, morose. Elbows in the air like wings, we kept eating, rolled our eyes, kept shoveling it in. Day after day of the dead, we were them. We ate inexhaustibly, ate what wasn't there, dead no longer dying of thirst, hung over, turned our noses up to what was. It was me, we were it, insensate, sugared sweat what we drank tasted like. Even so, the tips of our tongues tasted nothing, we sipped without wincing. We ate cakes, we ate fingernail soup, a new kind of gazpacho, no one willing to say what soul was. Knucklebone souffle we ate gristle, eyes we took from flies flying backward, a kind of caviar. None of us wanted to say what soul was. Thank you.